All right, let's root for some murder. So How to Make a Killing's written and directed by John Patton Ford. This movie stars Glen Powell. His character's mom had a falling out with her multi-billion-dollar family. However, that does not mean he's not in line to inherit the family fortune. Eventually. If a lot of other family members just, die before him. After Margaret Qualley's character just makes an offhanded remark to him about it, he starts thinking, what a good idea. So in this movie, he starts taking out his extended family members to inherit the family fortune of about $20 billion. In which, describing it, I know you're thinking, so this is dark comedy, right? Has to be. Yeah, absolute dark comedy here. Now, funny enough, this seems based off of or inspired by a book from 1907 called The Autobiography of a Criminal, in which there have been other adaptations. They're never called that, though. There's one called A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, an award-winning play based off of that book. Guess it charges by the title. How accurate or inspired by is this movie to that book from 1907? In which the movie takes place in modern day? I guess that's where phrases like inspired by or loosely adapted come in handy. According to the internet chatter of the past week, is probably still more accurate than Wuthering Heights is to Wuthering Heights. There's that. So in true, this guy's not really a murderer fashion, but he starts committing murder. The first one's really easy, just kind of falls into the situation. After that, he has to do a lot more planning, some due diligence, but he does increasingly get better at the job. And as for Glen Powell, I thought he was great in the film. I mean, per the job he gets in the movie while he's committing these murders, it definitely looks like a Dark Knight Rises tie-in. Expect that comment in most of the reviews for this film. Glen Powell left that film with a bump on his head and a pretty sweet story. Got knocked the fuck out by Tom Hardy. I do not have any such story like Shinzon of Remus knocked me out on set. Pretty sweet story, to be honest. But there are times with Glen Powell, I feel like he's this action star, heartthrob, Hollywood plant. Then there are other times where I'm like, yeah, the guy has charisma, screen presence, such is the case with this one. I mean, the guy is offing people, and you are along for this ride. It's not like Dexter where you have the hook of, yeah, he's a serial killer, but he is killing other killers. There's that. I mean, granted, some of his family members are complete and total chowderheads. That's an advantage that dark comedies have. They're funny, they're twisted, but also they can dial up the notch to make you go, I feel conflicted here. And I like it. I even like Margaret Qualley as the femme fatale energy, I guess. For a large portion of this film, I was like, what exactly is it she's doing here? Did you all put your heads together to make up a reason, thus make up a character for fine Margaret Qualley to be on screen? Is that why she's here? But she does eventually affect the plot. That was my thought process. But I really like Jessica Henwick in this film. She plays the love interest in this film, and therein lies the heart of the whole thing. She liked him before there was any concept of him being rich. So what are you actually chasing in this film? Love? 'Cause she seems pretty amazing. I mean, we know what the dating pool's like. If you find one that's a keeper, you keep. But he's still to the job, to the task of killing, and you gotta ask why. The moment she's the established love interest in the film, in his life, you see two paths to two very different treasures here. Which one would you choose? Which one should he choose? That's an interesting thing to wrestle with as you're watching this. I like how the movie's executed where it starts out, he's in jail, talking to a priest about the story that got him here. In which we know now something goes wrong, and you're always looking for that. That was a solid hook too. It can always be a little more interesting when you see where the character ends up and they're telling the story of how they ended up there. The biggest problem with this film is a problem by a clear mile is the illustration of the passage of time. One example, he runs into Margaret Qualley earlier on in the film. Later on, he gets a phone call from her. She's like, you remember last year when I ran into you? And I was like, when? I imagine murder's gotta be spaced out to not make the authorities too suspicious, which, I mean, that's a plot. The movie looks like it takes place within the same month the entire time. Apparently a lot of time passes. We're talking seasons should have passed. I mean, he moves up in the ranks of his job pretty quickly, so time does pass. That was nepotism, so maybe not. I thought this whole movie took place in about 14 days? I don't need the play-by-play by days, weeks, or months, but maybe the Requiem for a Dream, give me what season we're supposed to be in. Now you know the premise. You'll know if you like this. You know, I remember a conversation I had with a lady back when Dexter was at the height of its popularity. My friends and I were talking about it, we were gushing about it, and she was like, I could just never get past the fact that we're rooting for a serial killer in Dexter. If that's your take on Dexter, you're probably not gonna like this. However, this did have a better finale than Dexter, which isn't a finale anymore, I guess. But there's that. This one critic walking out of the theater with me, he was like, that was pretty bad. But, well, I enjoyed it. This was a fascinating tale of the road to hell, and I gotta say, it was a good one. It was dark, it was funny, it was witty. It had some surprising depth when you start marinating about the ending of the film. I had myself a really good time with this one. No alcohol required. It had some surprising cameos as the family members as well. I actually have to look this up because I think it was Gabe from The Office. It was Gabe from The Office. Amazing. All right, so How to Make a Killing. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Or what's your favorite dark comedy out there? Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.